Man, get ready to party like it's 2007 because Dale Jr. is a free agent again. Well, we already knew this. We've talked about it a bit, about how Dale Jr. and his contract with NBC expired at the end of 2023. But then the next question was it going to get renewed? And if so, when? Well, there is now a report that Amazon could make a run at Dale Jr., whatever that means. So we'll talk about that and a couple other things. This is a late video. I know it's later in the day. It's night. You might be eating dinner or something, or have eaten dinner already. I was watching Xfinity in truck qualifying at Atlanta. We've got 3 races coming up this weekend. The trucks and Xfinity have themselves a doubleheader tomorrow, and then Cup on Sunday. Daniel Dye on the pole for the Truck Series, and Jesse Love on the pole for the Xfinity Series. Back-to-back poles to start off Jesse Love's Xfinity Series career. I think they said he's the first guy since Sam Ard to do it in like the 80s, 83, I think. So, I mean, just wild stuff. Records being broken already, and it's week 2 of the season, so that's fun. But yes, Dale Earnhardt Jr., NASCAR Hall of Famer, drove for a number of years, yes. Won a couple of Daytona 500s, won a couple of Xfinity championships, currently co-owns an Xfinity Series team, Junior Motorsports. And for the past, what's it been, 6 years since 2018? Dale Jr. has been in the broadcast booth with NBC alongside Rick Allen, Steve Letarte, and Jeff Burton. He's been a good addition to the booth, in my opinion. I think he does a good job. I know there are many out there that agree with me. And obviously, Dale Jr. is still a big name in NASCAR, that Earnhardt name, and then also just himself. So Dale Jr. still being in NASCAR is great. Getting to hear his voice for half of the season is a really big deal to NASCAR fans. But at the end of 2023, he and his contract with NBC, not just him in the booth, but him, his Dirty Mo Media, Dale Jr. download, anything like that was associated with NBC, those contracts expired. As a result of that, Dale Jr., many of his podcasts, his media, website things, videos, whatever you call them, he's been putting them actually on here, on the YouTube. So we've been able to find Dale Jr.'s podcast, you can listen to his podcast for free on, Apple Podcasts or what's it called, Spotify, whatever it may be, but you've never been able to actually watch, Dale Jr. interacting with his guest, interacting with his co-host, unless you went to Peacock, which is a paid subscription because he had that deal through NBC. But now that it's on YouTube, you can actually watch him interact with Jeff Gordon during the Dale Jr. download, interact with Ray Evernham, whoever they have on the show. So there's a lot of factors in this, but the main one we want to focus on is obviously, Dale Jr. in the booth, because him and NBC is the big topic here. And now there could be a new player. Let's read it. So there's that new media deal. First of all, of course, Amazon, NBC, Fox Sports, and Warner Brothers, or TNT, have all agreed to a deal with NASCAR, $7.7 billion, to go into this new media rights deal with NASCAR over the next several years to broadcast the Cup Series races. So it kind of talks about that event, talks about the splits, and then it eventually says in this article, among the key things industry executives are keeping an eye on include which marquee races NASCAR conjures together to give Amazon and Warner Brothers a tentpole event to start the deal off with a bang. Since their packages will fall around the summer, options could include the likes of the Coca-Cola 600 or the Chicago Street Race. NASCAR is also in talks to go to Canada next year. The sport's most well-known personality, Dale Earnhardt Jr., recently revealed on his podcast that his deal with NBC Sports ended after 2023, a surprising revelation, in part because many people in the industry thought his deal would end after 2024 when NBC's current contract with NASCAR expires. On his podcast, the Dale Jr. Download, Earnhardt said he'd love to be back with NBC, but he had also spoken to all of NASCAR's TV partners without disclosing specifics. But given how the deep-pocketed Amazon entered the NFL and brought big-name talent like Al Michaels in front of the camera and Fred Gaudelli, sorry if I pronounced that wrong, behind the scenes, it could become a player for Earnhardt's services. And then it gives one of the quotes that Dale Jr. said during his podcast saying, basically, I'm unemployed right now in the broadcast market. So there's a lot of things to kind of talk about here. We've already talked about some of them with the contract being expired. That's straight up. That's straightforward. Dale Jr., NBC, they've worked together the last 6 years, but they don't have a contract for the future right now. Now, there's several months until NBC's season starts, so they've got time to figure out something for this year at least. But beyond 2024 is the big question. What will Dale Jr. do? What will NBC do in terms of a contract, in terms of being together? Well, I'm going to say what I said in the last video. I think NBC would be foolish to let Dale Jr. go, to let him walk, unless it was on his own terms. If he said, Amazon has 5 races the entire 2025 season, the entire 2026, 2027, however long the contract is. Amazon has 5 races a year. NBC will have 14 races a year. That's a little bit over a third of the schedule. That's a lot of races. So if Dale Jr. wants to scale back, he doesn't want to call as many races. He still wants to call races, but maybe he just doesn't want to call 14. Then maybe Amazon's the right fit for him. Maybe he does go there so he can call less races. So from the Dale Jr. perspective, maybe it's about scaling back. Maybe it's about doing less in terms of calling the races. And from that perspective, then Amazon seems like a good option. From the NBC perspective, once again, I think they'd be foolish to let him go because he's such a big name, because he carries so much power in NASCAR. I think they'd be foolish to let him walk. If he had the option to come back to NBC, he wants to come back to NBC, then if they let him slip out of their fingers, that's a massive L, as the kids say, on NBC's part. So from NBC's perspective, I think it should be pretty straightforward. Get him back any way you need to. If he doesn't want to come back, if it's his decision, then you tried, I guess. But if Dale Jr. wants to come back, NBC, you got to let him back. So, and then as for the Amazon thing, Amazon, as I said, Amazon's got a lot of money. Breaking news here on the channel, Amazon has a lot of money. But as it said here, they were able to get Al Michaels, who had called Sunday Night Football for so many years, one of the most well-known voices in football. They were able to get him to leave, and actually in NBC, ironically enough, to come over to Amazon and call their Thursday night football games. And from the Amazon perspective, think about this. Amazon's never stream NASCAR. They've never broadcast NASCAR. They're just now getting into the sports and also motorsports business in terms of the streaming package, in terms of the getting broadcasting rights for this. But if they were to get a booth of Alan Bestwick, let's just make a hypothetical here. Let's say they get Alan Bestwick in the booth. That's a name that many NASCAR fans respond positively to. Everyone loves Alan Bestwick in the booth. He's got a great voice. He calls races fantastically. He has some pretty iconic calls, and that would be a great start. But then, who else do you put in there? You got to get a driver in there, most likely. There's a lot of drivers who call races. Harvick's locked up at Fox. But outside of that, I think Burton's probably locked up at NBC, if I had to guess. But other than that, it's pretty wide open right now. And with Dale Jr., think about this. Amazon is going to be the first ever streaming service to exclusively stream a NASCAR Cup Series race. NASCAR's been on TV for decades now, yes, but it has never been exclusively streamed in terms of a Cup Series race. And it's going to take some people some time to get used to that, to having to go find Amazon on their computer, on their laptop, or I guess a computer is a laptop, their tablet, or their fancy smart TV. It's going to take people a while to get used to going to Amazon to stream a race. And some people might say, it's too complicated for me. I'll just catch the highlights online later, or I'll just wait for a race replay on, normal television once that comes on. But if you get Dale Earnhardt Jr., the name Dale Earnhardt Jr. in your booth, people might be a little more motivated to get onto your streaming service, to watch the race, to listen to Dale Jr.'s commentary, to hear what he has to say about the race. So once again, that Earnhardt name, Dale Earnhardt Jr. specifically, still carries a lot of power in the motorsports world, the NASCAR world specifically. If you were able to get him to start off your NASCAR streaming life, that would be a huge deal to get Dale Earnhardt Jr. It would be a big pull. It would be a big time hire. right out of the gates for Amazon. And also it talks about here, if Amazon, the first 14 races are going to Fox. That is what it is believed to be right now. So that would be the Clash through, if we're going off this year's calendar, it would go the Clash to North Wilkesboro, the All-Star race. That is the first 14 Cup Series events. So that means the first race for Amazon, if it were starting this year, would be the Coke 600. That is one of the majors of NASCAR, and it said here that they would want to start off on a bang, and that would be starting off on a bang for Amazon, starting with one of the biggest races in NASCAR. And if you've got that to start off your broadcasting lifetime, as I said, whatever I called it earlier. So you start off with Coke 600. That's a big plus, Once again, it could be a little rough in the early goings because not everyone is so stream happy or whatever you want to call it. But then if you're able to get a name like Dale Jr. in the booth, combo that up, that will help you a little bit. So there's still a lot of questions to be answered about Dale Jr.'s contract, about if he's going to stay at NBC, if he leaves for Amazon. I still think he'll probably stay with NBC if he truly wants to call races. I think he still stays at NBC. But if he does want to, as I said, what if theoretically he wants to do less races in the booth, he wants to focus more on his Xfinity team, maybe be home more, then maybe he does do Amazon. Maybe he does just do about a month and a half of calling races, and then that's it for the year. So it'll be interesting to see what ends up happening with Dale Jr. and also to see, who Amazon, who TNT, who they end up hiring in their booth. As I said, what if they're able to get an Alan Bestwick? Would they get some other driver in the booth? And if so, which driver? Would they potentially pull a Jamie McMurray from Fox? Would they pull, Boyer from Fox? I don't know. But there's a lot of questions to be answered, but it's fun to talk about some of these questions. We got 2 races tomorrow, as I said, with the Xfinity and the Truck Series. We got the Cup on Sunday. F1 predictions. F1 preseason testing just wrapped up. Made the thumbnail for the season preview and predictions video. It's quite the wild thumbnail, I will admit. But that will be on Wednesday. I'm looking forward to that. I'll give some more details when the time comes. Thanks for watching this video. Hope you enjoyed, and I will see you guys in the next video tomorrow. Well, some breaking news here from Atlanta, I guess, but NASCAR has confiscated the roof rail deflectors from Stewart-Haas Racing's numbers 10 and 41 Cup cars and will evaluate at its R&D center. Any penalties announced next week. Now, in the next gen era, when you get a part pulled during tech, it's over for you. So get ready to pay some fines, SHR, and some suspensions and all that, some points, penalties. The next gen era has been cruel to these teams in terms of the penalties, and that's not a bad thing. They have made these cars for a reason. They have these strict rules for a reason, and they enforce these rules, and they want the teams to know that they're going to enforce these rules. And SHR is a common violator of these rules. Remember at the Coke 600 last year, they got hit with one of the biggest individual penalties in NASCAR history, and they ran 20th. But for real, we'll see any penalties later in the week. But usually this does not go well, so my guess is they're going to get slapped with a big penalty. We'll talk about it later in the week.